This is an HR program on demand, a living seed capsule of work life and workplace coming live from a rooftop in Stockholm, Sweden. It's me, Ann-Marie Andrich, and
me, Katarina Berg.
A vodcast, if you like, on HR, straight across the counter. Sponsored by HRTheRealDeal, HR by HR for HR.
Hey Ann-Marie.
Hey Katarina.
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Okay, so let's mix this up. Usually you ask me questions. This time I was thinking that I will ask you questions. Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
Cool. So we do these VODs, right? And we never talked about why we do them. But they are vodcasts on demand. It's different events around the world that has asked us to talk about things. And due to the corona, it's safer to do them on a rooftop in Stockholm. And this time I would like to talk a bit about the really exciting work that you've been doing over at Husqvarna. So first of all, Husqvarna, 330 years. When I say that, what do you think then?
And I think a company full of fantastic history, innovation, creativity.
Right, it's a company that has reinvented itself over and over again, especially on technology and the products. So where are you right now?
Well, we are where we typically are. We are reinventing ourselves as we do.
Right.
And obviously have proven to do rather successfully for the past 330 years. So that's where we are currently as well. Looking into the future and see, how can we continue to stay relevant with our products.
So when I dare to say that you might just have shipped and worked with some different things for the last 2 years, that might be some of the biggest changes org-wise and people-wise and leadership-wise in 150 years. What do you reply to that?
That's what you say, 150 years. Yeah, I think we've done some really cool stuff. So, just like any other company, we looked at, the next years to come. What do we need to continue doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are we good at?
How do we build on what's really excellent?
How do we build on the core?
Mm-hmm.
And our strengths, and we will continue to do that. But also, what are the things that we need to do differently, and where do we need to improve? That we've done, and we're in the midst of that journey currently.
Cool. So if you take us back to 2019, you obviously the CEO of the division and the top management team. What did the conversation, what did it look like? I guess you did the same thing that most companies. What took us here will not take us there. And what was the conclusions?
Well, the conclusions was basically, as I said, we did take a good hard look on, who are we? Mm-hmm. Why are we here? What will the next few years look like, and what do we need to continue, as I said, continue doing, but also what are the adjustments and, the acceleration maybe of our journey look like. So we did a profound work of refreshing our strategy, mm-hmm. That we call Shape 25 for the Husqvarna Division, and that says itself, right? We're shaping ourselves for 2025, mm-hmm. and there are different steps that we need to take to get to that end state of what success looks like in 25. And then, in addition to that, when we refreshed the strategy, we obviously also realized that we need to adjust the organization as well. So we did, I would say, a rather massive reorg as well in 2019. And that gave us the platform of clarifying, why do we need to change? What are we actually changing? And then, looking at how do we make this change happen? Mm. And this was something that we planned for 2020. From a culture point of view, from a leadership point of view, how do we make this change happen now?
So here you are, you've done all the homework,
yeah.
And some of it is usually also a bit painful, right? You have to reorg, you have to set you up for success. You might do a couple of shifts that is clear for some, but not necessarily for all. And then we go into 2020, and you have obviously a series of activities, events, and processes that you want to refine, and then boom,
Comes the corona.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was you thinking then, and how did you have to rethink a couple of things at that time, quite early in 2020?
Yeah, and I think it was so interesting when COVID hit us, and obviously, like any other company, we went into crisis management mode very quickly. And for us, that looked a bit, we both have the manufacturing part of it, and then we have, the services that we are also providing. So we did some profound crisis management, but it also allowed us in parallel to look at the strategy that we set for 2019 and pressure test. Is this still flying? And we concluded, yes, it does actually. But it also gave us the insights of, there are a few things that we said that we were going to do maybe in 2022 or 2023, where we came to the conclusion very quickly, we need to accelerate those things. So this is where we are currently. So we've accelerated a few things in that strategy and plan going forward. Thankful and due to Corona, which I think is rather cool. Yeah. And I also think that there are some very uncool things with Corona, but there has been some good insights and learnings through Corona as well. And I think for us, some really, really good and valuable learnings and yeah.
Yeah, I also think it's quite important to stress what you just said is, so all the things on the personal, individual and company level where it's been painful, obviously, and where we had to pay a price. But there are also a couple of positive things, right? Fast forward like digitalization, using the crisis, maybe pivot on a couple of things and also do things that you might have said that we need to do 2020, or hopefully we are at this point 2023, all of a sudden here we are. Okay. So 2020, what has that looked like for you? I know that you have done some really big changes and you launched a couple of things. So when I say hackathon, what do you say then?
I say Shape 25-a-thon.
And what does that mean? Take us through that, all that work that you do, especially for the people listening and never done a big value journey or giving everybody in the organization a voice, or really leveraging other people internally of a big cultural change. So what did you do with your 25 Shape-a-thon?
It's a tricky word.
It is. You can see I'm focusing like 25 Shape-a-thon.
Yeah. But again, that was intentional why we named it the Shape 25-a-thon, because the strategy is Shape 25, right? And we did a leadership hackathon that I will sort of walk you through in a minute. But just to say, just to give a bit of sort of context to it, and where I think, again, COVID-19 sort of accelerated a few areas for us that we needed to develop as a company. We were a face-to-face company. We traveled a lot, meeting our customers, meeting one another. We are a global company, so we're traveling like crazy, right? And I would say we were not as digital in our ways of working. We are digital and in the forefront with regards to our products. But working internally in our processes, the way that we collaborate, we were not actually. So I think COVID-19 helped us to accelerate our virtual ways of working, which I think was super, super cool, right? Now, we set the strategy 19, we did the reorg, and that was the why and the what, let's say. And then moving into 2020, it was all about how do we bring our people along now? What does this mean for our culture? What do we need to change? What do we need to develop? And what do we need to continue strengthening? So we plan for a good cultural and leadership journey in 2020. And when we initiated that thinking, and also when we planned for it, we were saying, okay, so let's kick it off with a big leadership summit. Now, typically, and usually how we do this, it will be in a physical meeting. We couldn't do that. due to Corona. So we quickly did a rethink. So instead of inviting maybe only 100 of our top leaders throughout the division, there was nothing that prevented us, nor from a traveling point of view, nor from a budget point of view, nor from a physical room point of view. So we decided very quickly, let's invite all of our 900 leaders to this journey and ask them, what do they think leadership will be all about in delivering on this Shape 25 journey and strategy moving forward. So we did a virtual leadership summit, 900 leaders. We started with hacking leadership, and that's why we're talking about Shape 25. So during one day, August 26th, we had 900 leaders in 11 live workshops in 33 countries in 5 time zones. So we were basically touring the world with our leaders. It was amazing to see how a company who is a face-to-face company very quickly, and I would say intuitively also embraced this inclusiveness and open dialogue that we were having during this day. And of all of the things, I have to say, I've been fortunate to do some really nice things during my career, but I think this Shape 25-a-thon, the leadership hackathon that we did virtually with all of them, is definitely one of the most cool things that I've ever embarked on and managed to pull through.
I think it's super impressive, and I can just start to imagine. And for anybody that is thinking of doing this and never done this, I think we all understand to facilitate 900 leaders all across the globe in different time zones, going into workshop after workshop after workshop, and the energy and the presence that you need to have there. I understand that you are happy with that. I would be ecstatic to both dare to do that, but also then get away with it. So what did you do with all that data and all that buy-in, energy, and people feeling that they've been seen and heard? What was the end phase? Because it wasn't an exercise for the sake of an exercise.
No. So the end state was to build our leadership landscape, as we say, the leadership framework, that the common handshake between all of our leaders. This is how we should act and behave, and also if we feel that there are some behaviors that we're not super good at and we need to develop, then we're setting that framework or landscape to enable that development and growth journey, if you wish. So we took all of the fantastic feedback and the data that we got from the Shape 25-a-thon, and a week later we invited 400 of those 900 leaders into a summit, the leadership summit that we call Grow Summit. Because the whole journey that we are on is about growing, learning, collaborating, and taking those next steps right into the future. So that's why we call it the Grow. So we invited the 400 into the summit at 3 half days, again virtual, and they were then working with the data and feedback from the Shape 25-a-thon, outlining and narrowing down what kind of principles, how many, and what kind of behaviors do we attach to those principles. That we did, and obviously when we closed the summit, there was still some fine-tuning with that feedback and that data, and we did that. We did some feedback rounds with the management team, with our HR team as well. And my only guiding sort of principles when we did those feedback rounds with the management team and the HR team was to say, we have to honor the feedback and the data and the work that we've done with our leaders. So it's about fine-tuning. It's not about changing anything. If there is a word that we feel that, okay, this makes sense for us to simplify because it's important that everyone understands also, right? Or, maybe phrase it a bit differently, we did that. But content-wise, it was the same.
Yeah.
And the reason why it is important, and it was important to honor that, is if you ask people for their input, they also need to recognize themselves later on when you launch something, right? So this was what we did. So we tweaked it, we massaged it a little bit. We decided also very early that we wanted to use a specific semantics language that was a bit modern. We were playing with words like landscape. Why do we call it the leadership landscape? Because our business is in the green space.
Yeah.
We produce state-of-art products for garden and forestry. So we were intentional about the language that we were using. Planting seeds, planting leadership seeds, mowing, shaping, mowing the leadership at Husqvarna Division. So being a bit playful, right? And then we sort of wrapped this up very nicely into the leadership landscape and launched it then, November 18th. I think the feedback that we received so far is amazing. People recognize themselves in what we have in the leadership landscape. They think it's, how did we manage to do this in such a short period of time? 3 months. And we brought everyone along. And I think that is also one of the things that I really, really like about inviting everyone to this kind of dialogue, is that when you do that, you also have the anchoring basically finalized when you roll it out, because people have been part of the journey from step one until you launch it.
Yeah. It's a massive undertake though, and it's as the feedback also says, it's done very quick. In the part they were involved.
Exactly.
For behind the curtains, obviously there is so much more work, and it's a longer, but still I think in a company of, is it plus 10,000?
We're 13,000 in the whole company, and then in the Husqvarna Division, which is the largest division, it's 7,000.
Yeah. So, and 900 leaders. So well done. I have to tip my hat to you and your team and everybody that was part of that, and also daring to do something quite new, because I imagine that this way of working was totally new, and the process was new, and some of the words and also some of the methods were quite new. But as you say, that the feedback has been positive, and people are energized, and they recognize themselves, and they know that they did the work and nobody else. It wasn't like a bureau, it wasn't an agency.
No.
It wasn't the leadership team, which is worth a lot. So what would you send us off with if we are inspired and want to do this? What is some of your learnings, and where now, if you're going to be honest, where maybe even a failure, if any?
Yeah, what was the failures? Let me think about the failures. But let me start with sort of the learnings, and also where. Yeah, let me sort of take you back when I was planting the seed of this journey, and how I sort of envisioned this, and having the first conversation with my manager, who is the president of the division. Quite honestly, I'm sure that he was like, "What is she talking about?"
Right.
I understand what we need to do. I also understand the idea, but will it fly? I'm sure that he maybe once, maybe twice also thought, this can go completely astray. But what I did appreciate, and what I think was super crucial, was that he trusted me. He trusted me when I said, trust me on this one. I think this is the right way of doing it. I think if we are embarking on the journey that we have set for ourselves, it's super important that we bring our leaders along, and this is the way that we should do it. So he had the courage of letting me do this. And then I remember when we talked to the management team of the division, their first question, it was not about that we were doing it, It was more about the how. How will we actually how will we bring 900 leaders along? How do you do that? So they were more sort of consumed about the practicalities, and there are engineers, the majority of them. They were more consumed about the practicalities, but also about the fact that, as I said earlier, we are a face-to-face company. So this was new to them as well. How do you do this virtually? And again, trust the process. There is an intention of why we're doing this, and we planned this, right? And then I think the courage, I think that is important. If you have a manager who has the courage to trust you and to let you, let you do things, even though they're not quite sure, they maybe have not experienced them themselves. And then I think, just bringing everyone along and just trusting the process, because it is intentional.
Yeah.
We had steps, and there was an intention behind every step.
So if we would round this up a bit, because I think we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and there's so many learnings to do from a big event that is usually, it's not event, it's like a series of events.
Yes.
and things that you do. So how will you now harness from this in 2021? What's the plan?
Well, the plan is, first of all, now we launched it, right? So we said, just familiarize yourself. Take a few weeks and think about it. Look at it. What does this mean for you? And then start that dialogue amongst yourselves. And when you start that dialogue, think about, first of all, what does this mean for you, right? Because when you look at the behaviors, and there's 16 of them, right? And that's our handshake. This is what we think will be super critical for us when we develop ourselves, but also when we lead and develop our people. So first think about, what does this mean for me? And this is where we are currently. Now, it is a developmental tool for us, or a framework, or a landscape. So as it is that, we're also launching a leadership program that will help us develop those areas or those behaviors that we need help with. So that will continue in 2021, and there are a lot of other things that will continue as well. But I think now what we have is, we have that landscape, we have that foundation that will enable anything else that we need to, equip ourselves with to be able to be successful in bringing that strategy to life in 2021.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing. I think you usually talk about how you are dialing up everything over at Husqvarna. I think this was a good example of exactly that. So should we end up the same way that we always do?
I think we should.
Okay, cool. I medaljer.